Hey guys, this is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, where you can sign up right now for $1 for an entire year for insider access. As always, we're back for another episode of Recruit of the Week, where we highlight one key Michigan target every week. This week's Recruit of the Week is top 100 Notre Dame defensive line commit Brandon Davis-Swain, who visited Michigan over the weekend for its dominant win over UConn. Brandon Davis-Swain is a really intriguing prospect. He's a guy that's been on my radar since he was a freshman. Obviously, I went out to Bloomfield on a number of occasions to see Donovan Edwards and several other guys, including this cycle's commits in Amir Herring and Samaj Morgan. Both were on campus with him over the weekend, recruiting him over to Ann Arbor. But Davis-Swain himself is, again, a really, really interesting prospect. He's a really great talent without a true position, at least when it comes to Michigan's scheme. So when he originally committed to Notre Dame, and even before he committed to Notre Dame, the biggest concern I had with Davis-Swain wasn't his talent. It was fit for this particular scheme. Davis-Swain picked up an early offer from Michigan before the arrival of Mike Elston. He abruptly committed to Notre Dame without a lot of heads up. So he was never a guy that was really able to be truly evaluated by Mike Elston. Just off of measurables alone, again, he doesn't seem like a true scheme fit. He's about 6'2.5", 6'3", 245 pounds. So he's not a guy that, could necessarily be a David Ajabo type of edge or even a Mike Morris type of player. So again, the concern was kind of where does he fit along Michigan's defensive line or scheme? Fast forward to now, Michigan is reevaluating Brandon Davis-Swain. Mike Elston is taking another look at him. They obviously brought him in for a visit. So let's talk about Brandon Davis-Swain. This is what I wrote after seeing him at the Under Armour camp in Ohio in the offseason. Again, I've seen Davis-Swain live on multiple occasions, but this is my most recent eval of him. I'm not sure where top 100 2024 West Bloomfield High defensive lineman Brandon Davis-Swain fits, but he was damn good yesterday. Davis-Swain put his hand in the dirt and stood up in one-on-ones and was dominant, earning co-defensive line MVP honors. Davis-Swain is about 6'3", 245 pounds, and has played everything from tight end to defensive end at the high school level. He's not overly long or athletic, but he's a strong kid that uses his hands well and has a strong arsenal of moves off the edge. Davis-Swain has a big rump and wide body, so I think he can add some pretty good weight and potentially be a 3. Right now, I'm really intrigued. So yeah, I didn't see Davis-Swain as a scheme fit just from Michigan standpoint, but the interesting thing about Michigan under Jesse Minter has been the use of a wide variety of bodies. So Michigan has obviously had 3 different defensive coordinators over the past few years, starting off with Don Brown, whose guys are still on campus, obviously. Mike McDonald was in for a year, so he helped recruit the defensive line last cycle, and now Jesse Minter has obviously implemented a scheme similar to McDonald's. But anyway, a wide range of bodies. You have kind of more true edge guys like a Jalen Harrell, or you have guys like Mike Morris, that huge guy that can come off the edge or put his hand on the dirt. You have guys like Kenneth Grant, that's a massive 300-pounder. Then you have guys like Chris Jenkins, who is really underweight as a high school prospect, and Ben Herbert has done a tremendous job with him. So I was at the Michigan game over the weekend and had a chance to watch the defensive line closely. Defensive line is one of my favorite positions to evaluate. I feel like I have a pretty decent hit rate there. So when I looked at the defensive line, I looked at Mike Morris first, just because Davis-Swain is listed as more of a hybrid defensive end edge guy. And I was like, okay, maybe he can do the Mike Morris role. I was also told maybe that's what they were going to circle back and evaluate him as. So I looked at Mike Morris and I'm like, man, from the field level, Mike Morris is humongous and he has really good length. So I didn't see him as, a guy like a Mike Morris. So then I was like, okay, who else could he potentially fit? Obviously, he's not going to grow into, a Kenneth Grant or even a Mason Graham. Mason being, about 6'3", 295 pounds or 300 pounds, whatever he's at now. He's looking really good under Ben Herbert. I don't think he can add that much weight. I said he could add some good weight. And what I meant by that was maybe add about 30 pounds. So the guy that I looked at and was like, okay, if there's a fit for Brandon Davis-Swain in this scheme is Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins is a kid that I saw in my first cycle covering Michigan. And like I mentioned, he was underweight as a high school prospect. But he had great genes. Obviously, his father played in the NFL. He had a lot of weight to add, but it took no problem. I mean, Jenkins had the frame to add quite a bit of weight. Ben Herbert's the best at what he does, and he got him straight. And Chris Jenkins always had the talent. It was just about shaping up his body, and he shaped up his body. He's turning into a really good football player for the University of Michigan. So Brandon Davis-Swain could be in a similar mold. Like I said, he's just a really talented prospect without a position. But the encouraging thing under Jesse Minter is, hey, we have all these guys that were recruited by several guys. You also have to remember there was a shift in position coaches during that time and everything, and we've found spots for them. So I think they can find a spot for Brandon Davis-Swain if they decide to make a big push. Now, if Michigan does make a big push, if they do go all in on Brandon Davis-Swain and make him a top target in the 2024 recruiting cycle, and again, it's still early, man. Like, we're not even done with 2023. Like, I feel like these months are so heavily focused on 2023 that 2024 is still a little bit on the back burner. But if they do go all in on Brandon Davis-Swain, this is definitely a guy that they can flip. I mean, look, he has plenty of former teammates on campus, from Donovan to Makari Page, to now obviously having Samaj and Amir Herring committed. That West Bloomfield pipeline is flowing strong. Ron Bellamy obviously was the head coach at West Bloomfield, does a fantastic job as a recruiter for the Wolverines, and was one of the most respected high school football coaches in the Midwest. Won a state championship at West Bloomfield. Brandon Davis-Swain on that team. So all those connections will obviously help. I think Notre Dame is a good fit for Brandon and what he brings to the table, but Michigan has done really, really well recruiting at West Bloomfield, and with all those personal connections, with them having him back on campus. And I would expect Brandon Davis-Swain, being a local prospect, to visit a few more times. And with Notre Dame really struggling on the field, I know they beat Cal over the weekend, but they have some tough games coming up. They still have BYU on the schedule. They still have Clemson on the schedule. They still have USC on the schedule. The road for them's not too easy, and they haven't looked the part of the preseason hype. I think Marcus Freeman is definitely an energetic recruiter that's put together a really good class, but you're seeing a lot of Notre Dame commits start to look around, explore some other options, Davis-Swain being one, having visited Michigan over the weekend. So we'll see. That's kind of my breakdown of Brandon Davis-Swain. Appreciate you guys. As always, subscribe to the Wolverine, $1 1 year right now.